Hey there, athletes. Coach John Ferry here from Team Wilpers. Excited as ever to welcome you to our Week 2 athlete briefing for our 2024 Holiday Run Challenge. Congratulations on the near completion of Week 1, and especially big congrats to everyone that completed their 20-minute distance test this week. Set the baseline for this holiday challenge. We're going to start with a quick Week 1 review. So if you didn't do the distance test, you executed that progression run to start the week, touched on ranges of paces from easy to a little bit faster than half marathon pace. It's a great way to practice pacing and hit a lot of those pace ranges we're going to utilize over the course of the challenge here in Week 1. Key run number 2 this week was that threshold workout, the 3x4 minute threshold. So working our threshold energy zone, working on one of our best endurance race paces there. Key run number 3, our endurance or long run, maybe upcoming for many people still, should be an easy pleasure cruise, so all smiles start to finish on this one. As we come to the conclusion of Week 1, it's my weekly reminder that you want to get in, make sure to check those boxes, chase that 100% completion percentage. It is always important, but especially here in this holiday challenge, one of the main focuses, if you remember from last week, is that we want to really be focused on staying consistent during this troublesome time of year. So make sure you get in there, check those boxes, chase that 100% completion percentage. Although we're still here finishing up 2024, I thought it's worth mentioning the top of 2025 for the planners among us up there. So starting at the top of January, we will jump back in with another 8-week winter run challenge, 8-week general fitness. We'll talk a little bit more about the focus on that as we get closer. But what has been very popular in the past, and will certainly be back again this year, is the 10-week half marathon program kicking off at the top of the year, continuing through the middle of March for races in and around that kind of middle of March weekend. So signups will open for that here in the next week or so. Keep an eye out. But when planning your top of 2025 to spring of 2025, crazy how fast it comes. Keep an eye out for those things coming, once again, right at the top of the year. Let's talk about Week 2. So run number 1, our VO2 max interval workout. So the main structure is a 5x1 minute VO2 max with 1 minute easy. So I've thrown the term around of work to recovery ratio a little bit in the past, and here again, we're at a work to recovery ratio of 1-to-1. It's pretty generous recovery based on the amount of work. So there's no need at all to be intimidated by this workout. While we're going to move a little bit faster, run a little bit faster than maybe it's been comfortable, especially if you're coming off an endurance race season. It's a lot of recovery to go along with this, so it's going to be just fine. So by running these faster intervals, we're not only looking to improve our VO2 max a little bit on an energy zone perspective, but start to get a lot of efficiency and power in your stride that will ends up translating back to run paces, run targets at all energy zones. That's what we're looking to do here in these 1 minute intervals, really generate a lot of efficiency and power in the stride there. For those that are coming off endurance cycles, or for those who are not that familiar with the style of workout, it might just take a little while to kind of get a feel for what it looks like. So that's okay. Be a little bit lenient on yourself. Go into it, play around with it. Try not to overshoot the mark as best as possible. That's probably the number one mistake when people kind of start running too fast instead of too slow. So come into it easy, get up to speed, but allow yourself a little bit of leniency when learning a new energy zone target here. You'll definitely notice the inclusion of striders in the warm-up. This is very important as we start to kind of touch on some of these higher speeds. You want to utilize those striders to open up your stride and get your body nice and ready to take on some of that higher intensity running that we have coming here in the week ahead. Run number 2, our threshold run, so right back onto our progression here from Week 1. A step up for this, we're going to 3x5 at threshold plus 4 minutes. So a step up from Week 1, as I mentioned, a little bit more time spent at zone across the board. However, as we step up, we're also allowing a little bit longer recovery intervals between segments. So want to keep utilizing these, want to make sure you maximize the recovery so that you can get back into and have another good quality set. As we start to continue this progression over the next 5 weeks still, those recoveries will start to drop back down a little bit closer to 1 minute. So enjoy it while it lasts here. To keep in mind, threshold at its most fundamental term, whether the definition is right or wrong, is a pace that you could maintain when well trained for about an hour. So why I mention that is that the effort should sort of match that description. So if you're feeling like this pace is entirely unreachable, then you actually want to drop down a pace zone a little bit. Perhaps try half marathon pace, perhaps try marathon pace if that's not resonating for you. But it should feel like something that you could maintain for at least 40 minutes. And if it's not resonating there, it's not lining up, you should drop the pace down a little bit. Ultimately make the workout, one, a little bit more enjoyable, much more achievable, because this should be something that you feel is kind of comfortably uncomfortable, is another term that kind of resonates with this energy zone here. Finishing up the week, of course, with our endurance run. So another easy one, just a reminder for experienced runners and or runners looking at particular race goals in the back end of the winter, or the winter here, going into the spring. This might be an opportunity to take that long run, make it a little bit longer, make sure it's in alignment with your upcoming race goals. We'll jump into a couple questions that came up here during the week. So the first is, can you talk about time-based marathon plans and slower runners not making the usual long run plans like in other plans? So should tweak that a little bit. But so I think there are two components to discuss. And what we're in essence talking about is time-based marathon versus distance-based marathons. And so the two components are a midweek workout and then the long run duration. And so when writing most training plans, I've talked about this a little bit in the past, it's pretty rare that I will intentionally write workouts for people that go a whole lot past 60 minutes. If you're a very good runner, maybe 75 minutes. If you're a top level athlete, maybe 90 minutes as a midweek workout, potentially then go into like 2 days, etc. But it's very, very rare. So on the midweek, having the time-based workouts tends to be really helpful. You'll certainly notice that these challenges are time-based. Most of the half marathon programming we're doing is time-based workouts on the midweek and outside of the long run progression. So these time-based workouts, what they do is allow us to be able to align a larger group of people and have them have kind of the overall same training stress. So me running for an hour easy, anyone else running for an hour easy, we both run for an hour easy. I might go further or shorter than another runner, but we've ultimately had the same kind of training stress during that time period. So it's really good for athletes of maybe a little bit slower pace to have that time-based midweek where you're not beholden to always hit 7, 8, 9 miles, which can push you to significantly too long of workout. The long run, which I think is where a lot of this question lies. If you look at the time-based marathon progression that I wrote for 2024, it has the long run progression stopping at 3 hours. So very understandable concern if you're a marathoner that's going to run a 4 or 5 hour marathon of why would you stop your long run progression at 3 hours? It's a very reasonable concern. And the answer is that there's just some really compelling evidence out there that kind of dictates us to stop that at 3 hours for now. And there's kind of a few pieces of it that I find most kind of compelling, if you will. One is that there's absolute evidence of diminishing return after roughly the 3 hour mark in training. It's not finite. So, 305 versus 254 versus whatever, it becomes a little bit of a nebulous area. But in and around that time period, you do start to see a diminishing return in the benefit of the workout. In essence, you've maximized the aerobic benefit that you've got of it. And at that point, you're just kind of continuing without getting the training benefit or the training effect any longer. Without a doubt, there's an increased risk of injury going into that point. It's more footfalls, it's more overall fatigue and training stress, more risk of repetitive stress issue. And then the final piece of that pie is that as you go longer and longer and longer, the recovery component is also going to take an extended period of time and prevent you from getting back into workouts at a high level until you ultimately are able to recover, which could take 2, 3, 4 days for a run of that duration, at least for some people. So for a combination of those reasons, we really recommend people stopping in and around the 3 hour mark. Now, once again, it's not finite. You have to make decisions based upon your training, your body, your running history, etc. But especially in a group, we're recommending that way. And so I like to frame it sometimes in the context of ultra running, which is, let's take the 100 milers out there. A 100-mile runner is never getting anywhere close to the 100-mile distance in advance of that race. They're training high volume, perhaps, hopefully. They're training high volume. They're training really quality workouts. They're training a lot, but they're never getting close to that distance. Yet on the day, they might go out and do as much as double the distance, the max distance they've done in training in order to achieve that distance. Well, the same principle applies for the marathon. When going out to achieve that 26.2, it might not be, there's certainly nothing required that says you have to hit 18, you have to hit 20 as part of that build to be able to do it. And so what we look at is what is the kind of the benefit to risk kind of reward there. And the benefit to risk has kind of smart bets right now are probably stopping in and around the 3-hour mark for most athletes in training. So long answer to a short question. Hopefully it helps. Certainly feel free to continue with follow-up questions on that. Challenge me on that. I think, as I said, it's very far from us, exact science at this point, but it's the best info we have right now. Next question was, I've been doing these challenges always at a moderate level, but now since I have the all access membership, what's the difference in difficulty levels and when do you know when to move up? So it's a great question. And if you didn't know already, those with all access, which I think is many of you, you have the ability to choose a little bit easier, moderate workout, which is the baseline, and then a little bit advanced, slightly more difficult workout via the toggle right at the top of the week. And so in all three plans, the structure remains quite similar. So everyone in essence is still doing the same workout, but there are some kind of sometimes, incredibly small, gentle tweaks just to make it kind of tilt one way or another. And other times can be a little bit more significant. But I would say in general, the difference is that the more difficult version tend to be slightly longer. So that kind of spans all three blocks of the workout, if you will. Warm-ups tend to be a little bit longer, cool-downs tend to be a little bit longer. And in the main set is sometimes longer, oftentimes a little bit longer, not always actually. So what we're looking is to get more running, more volume in that difficult version. And then on the amount of intervals, sometimes there's more intervals, sometimes there's longer sets, less recovery. So back to that work to recovery ratio, we can do the exact same workout, extend the work period, shorten the rest period, becomes a little bit more difficult, more challenging workout without having any additional duration whatsoever. So it just depends a little bit, workout to workout, week to week, of what those differences are in the workout. I would say it's just a lot of times a very slightly nuanced thing. We're pushing it a little bit higher into the training stress score. So what I would say is kind of the indicators that you should move up or you might want to move up or certainly might consider moving up to the more difficult version of that workout is, one, if you want a slightly higher volume in general, if the workouts are a little short for you and you would like longer workouts, moving up makes a lot of sense. Two, if you have extra energy at the ends of the runs or didn't find them ultimately that challenging, that would be the very obvious reason to move up, get the slightly longer, slightly more difficult workout. And then three, maybe most importantly, the workouts do tend to be a little bit longer. So if you have extra time and availability in your schedule, and with that time and availability are hoping to do more running, then I absolutely would say bump up, give it a go, and see how you feel. It shouldn't be a huge shock to the system, but definitely just a little bit upgraded than our kind of baseline workout there. So hopefully that helps. Well, that'll be all for our week 2 workout, week 2 briefing. Thanks so much for joining. Have an amazing week 2. Hope to see you back next time.